What do I do with this emptiness, this pit in my stomach? The feeling of spinning my wheels only never to move. I've made my choices, I'm in this world, but I never considered the crushing weight of the games being played. Day in and day out, things stay where they are, fighting battles to push a needle that doesn't budge. For all that I've done, the sacrifices I've made, there's no end in sight. A system designed to extract the life out of me until there's nothing left. So what do I do with this emptiness I feel? What do I do to survive? Jujutsu Kaisen was originally published in Weekly Shonen Jump in March 2018 with an adaptation from Studio Mappa airing in October 2020. From author Gege Akutami, the story follows Yuji Itadori as he joins a secret organization of Jujutsu sorcerers to eliminate the King of Curses, Ryomen Sukuna, of whom Yuji has become the host. At least, that's what it says on the box. For those of you who have watched or read the manga, you know things get complicated. With the release of Season 3, we entered an arc centered around the Culling Game, and to be honest, it's an arc that I wasn't able to digest at first. Don't get me wrong, the action in the show elevates what was originally there in the source material, but at the same time, that doesn't really help with the deeper feelings I have. I won't go into spoilers, but the Culling Game is the endgame, and while there are technically other arcs after this, the game itself remains the setting until the very end. And in the tradition of Battle Shonen, of Battle Royale in general, it's a showcase of fights between characters. And like I said, the show does an amazing job adapting what's there on the page. There are certain set pieces and moments that are and will be amazing to see on screen. But what that doesn't do is address my problems with this arc. And don't worry, this is not a Jujutsu Kaisen is actually terrible video, I don't do those. My main issue was that I just didn't understand the point of it all. I think fights mean something beyond trading blows, and with this, I just couldn't figure out what that was. Because I'm not satisfied with just saying, turn off your brain and enjoy. I think that's a disservice to the people who put their heart and souls into bringing this story to life. Art appreciation isn't just about enjoying what you experience, it means engaging with what's there. A story's meaning or purpose comes from interacting with the reader, the viewer. They bring in their own experiences to the text, and that informs what they get out of it. For me, what I got out of the Culling Game was confusion. It was overwhelming, and I think there's something to that. A shape of a deeper experience that I couldn't put my finger on at first. But to start, let's talk about the Culling Game, what it is before what it means. The Culling Game is a ritual, 10 colonies spread across Japan. The participants are sorcerers. You play, or you die. A battle royale gathering points by defeating other players or onlookers, where stagnation means death. 100 points and you get to add a rule, one that can't alter the outcome but a rule nonetheless. The purpose of the ritual is to harvest cursed energy, fuel for the fire that is Kenjaku's plan, a merger of the people of Japan with Tengen, creating a new era, an evolution so to speak, an endpoint that's unknown even to Kenjaku. That's the big picture with this arc, and we follow the characters' attempts to stop Kenjaku's plan. But functionally, what this premise does is create a backdrop and dramatically raise the stakes of the story. Up until now, the looming threat of Sukuna's fingers spread across Japan, causing chaos, and all of Geto's scheming created existential drama. That was the larger picture that drove plot threads forward. But that threat was far off in the distance, and had the quest for Sukuna's fingers been the cornerstone of the story, I think things would have gotten stale really quickly. One of the more clever aspects, I think, of the Shibuya arc was the fact that Yuji was given like 15 of Sukuna's fingers all at once, a subversion of the fetch quest trope Gege was setting up. It's rapid escalation in an arc that's all about rapid escalation. Gojo's ceiling, the reveal of Kenjaku, the start of the Culling Games itself. Gege takes what was originally a moderately paced action-adventure story and ratchets up the speed dramatically and effectively too, I'd argue. The Culling Game then is an extension of the Shibuya arc. In a way, the format is the same. isolated groups of people engaging in fights. In the Shibuya arc, they were separated by floors and teams. In the Culling Game, they're separated by colonies and groups. If the Shibuya arc was a way to raise the stakes and rapidly bring a sense of tension, I see the Culling Game as Gege's attempts to keep you in that state of tension. Kenjaku's plan is no longer a mystery, we're in the thick of it, and there's a ticking clock that the characters have to beat. What I can say about this arc is that it showcases what I think Gege does best, creating set pieces. We saw a bit of that in the Shibuya arc, but the Culling Game is where he really gets to go all out. It's a battle royale. That's a great way to create those set pieces. While Gege is a good mangaka, I think he's an even better storyboard artist. His action is easy to follow, the motion he captures within panels. That's part of the reason the show looks so good. Sure, it has its own directorial flair, especially seasons 2 and 3, but at the heart of it are these iconic moments that are laid out clearly in the manga. I will not deny that Gege is fantastic at making the most out of those moments, so much so that I'd say this is a story defined by spectacle, especially in the later half. And the Culling Game is the culmination of that idea. It's filled with characters who have interesting powers paired up against opponents with equally interesting powers. I think some of the fights in the Culling Game are Gege at his best. There are scenes that I cannot wait to see in motion. With the direction Mappa has taken with the series, I can only imagine how hard it will go. This arc is fights and set pieces back to back to back. And while on one hand, that's exciting, on the other hand, it can get a bit repetitive, too much of a good thing, so to speak. This is where my feelings get a bit complicated. The story sets up this game with clear rules. There's a framework for how the story will progress, but progress to what end? The merger with Tengen, sure, but what does that even mean? Even Kenjaku doesn't seem to know, so what's the point? We witness fight after fight, the characters struggle and overcome, but it doesn't feel like it amounts to very much. And don't get me wrong, the fights we see are compelling on their own, but that's part of the problem. They're compelling on their own. As part of a larger story, they don't contribute much. The Culling Game as a story arc tries to keep you in this sense of tension. It's literally life and death for the characters with horrific, albeit vague consequences should they fail. But in keeping us in this state of heightened tension, it robs the story of drama. It's a relentless grind of action that starts to feel endless as things continue. And so what I'm left with is this feeling of emptiness, this sense that what the characters do don't ultimately matter. One fight leads into the next, and it goes on and on and on. This may feel less true in the show, but in reading week to week, it was a grind. You can only feel that this scenario can lead to the end of the world for so long. The more you raise the stakes, the more you run the risk of the reader or viewer getting numb to those stakes. At some point, it starts to feel like the characters are up against a wall, one that refuses to move. So when I say I felt a sense of emptiness as I progressed through the Culling Game, it's because the characters' actions started to feel hollow up against this relentlessly oppressive force. Individual actions started to feel meaningless. Will Hakari win against Kashimo? Will Megumi survive against Receipt Man? Maybe, but does it matter? The Culling Game moves on regardless of what they do. So what we have here is an arc where the stakes have never been higher, but where individual actions are rendered almost meaningless. What remains is this structure of the Culling Game without the incremental change necessary to drive the plot. The system moves on its own. There's no point in intervention. It renders each fight within that structure hollow. That's the best way I can describe the feeling I was left with when experiencing the Culling Game. At least the form that this emptiness I felt took. We watch fights play out with nothing really changing, and in that way, this attempt to stay in a heightened state of tension begins to feel like stagnation. Now, I say all of that like it's a bad thing, and for a while, it was. I came away from Jujutsu Kaisen feeling like I experienced a lot and not very much at the same time. And I didn't know what to make of that, this sense of transient malaise. I became disillusioned with the Culling Game, the futility of the characters against a structure that was so large and all-encompassing that their acts as individuals seemed almost pointless. Fight, survive, repeat. It was an endless grind week to week. But in that absurdity of relentless exhaustion was something. A piece that felt a bit relatable to me after sitting with this feeling. What if the spectacle itself was communicating something? What if the meaninglessness I felt was the point? Charles Bernard is one of the Culling Game players, a mangaka trying to get published. He's not a very important character. If anything, he's pretty much only there to highlight Hakari's domain expansion. But I think he encapsulates something I realized about the Culling Game. There's something quaint about the fact that even though world-changing events are happening around him, Charles still tries to get published. A meaningless act in a situation that will ultimately kill him in one way or another. It's funny in how pointless it is, but that's the life of a creator. There's an inherent absurdity to doing something that is seemingly useless in the grand scheme of things while your life is on the line. But that is a creator's daily life. In order to live, they must make things, manga, art, music, anything. And if they fail, they're as good as dead. That's the system we live in. Charles trying to get published while the specter of death looms over him? That's his everyday. But that struggle isn't unique to being a creator. People mop floors, make fast food, answer phone calls, write emails. We do all these mundane things just to live and justify our existence. We're all players in a game, fighting every day of our lives. Work, survive, repeat. Work, survive, repeat. It's all the same every day, and it happens back to back to back. That's the grind of daily life, struggling to survive and make it through the day, just to do it all over again. A system, a structure, designed to cull its players, separate the weak from the strong. At some point, you sort of get numb to it. This battle where we consistently put ourselves on the line, reduced to nothing but background noise. I don't know how much of this was intentional, but in the shape of the Culling Game is a structure I recognize. The feelings of being part of countless fights that keep me in exactly the same place. I work each day to keep myself afloat, paying off debts that never seem to disappear. I create things for an algorithm that I don't know I can please. Everyone plays their own Culling Game in whatever form that takes. My struggles are my own, but I imagine a lot of people have that feeling. The exhaustion, the pointlessness. We numb ourselves to our daily struggles, fighting against the larger forces around us. And so, what do I do with these feelings of emptiness, the existential dread I try to hide from day to day? I'm Charles drawing manga at the end of the world. I'm Yuji, a cog in the machine. I put one foot in front of the other day by day, struggling to figure out what it all means. The truth is, I don't have an answer for that question. It's something I deal with every day. My fights are relentless. I move forward because I feel I need to. There isn't another option. Not one that makes it through life anyways. Sometimes I think to myself that things would be better if I was more talented. I wouldn't struggle like I do if I was stronger, the strongest, the best at what I did. It's easy to live in that fantasy. But as long as we exist within a system designed to drain us, a fantasy is all that it is. Raw talent could never beat that system from within. That's what I see in the Culling Game, through its spectacle, a depiction of the daily grind of life. A desperate artist, a disillusioned lawyer, a comic just struggling to survive, connected through the game they play, one thrust upon them by forces outside of their control. An onslaught of life and death battles that start to lose meaning, a numbing as time goes on. I can't know what was in Gege's head when he wrote this art, but intended or not, the Culling Game recreated the structure of modern life, and in trying to find meaning in that, it makes me want to try and find meaning in my daily struggles. I want to make sense of my own Culling Game, but the reality is, it goes on no matter what I do. I'm just another cog in this machine of life, one of many trying to find the meaning to move. So, what do I do with this emptiness I feel? If the system keeps moving on, if it doesn't care what I think, then I'll fill it with whatever I want. I'll keep drawing manga at the end of the world because what else is there? The game continues, but so will I. As always, thank you so much for watching. I think this is one of the few times I got a video out about a show that is currently airing. Man, it's hard to do these quickly. Either way, I hope you liked the video, and if you did, why not leave a like and comment? Maybe subscribe too if you feel so inclined. Thanks as always to my $10 patrons, your support means the world to me. And if you want to support me making videos and would like your name to show up at the end of videos like the fine people you just saw, consider supporting me on Patreon. You can do so for as little as $1. I'm gonna try something new here. The music for this video will be a Patreon exclusive for a month. I'll eventually put it up on YouTube, but if you like the music, because if you didn't know, I write most of it, you can download it as a single purchase. That goes for all the music on the channel. If you want to use the music for yourself, you can. I just highly recommend getting it through my Patreon. It helps me out if you do. But that's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Shoots.